Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today, we're going to be talking about the next big mechanic that finally graduated from silver bordered into black bordered magic. Of course, I'm talking about rolling a die. I don't know about you, but just the other day I was thinking about how Magic really needed some more RNG elements, so I'm glad someone at Wizards finally has our back on this one. Now, the first thing I'm going to be talking about is those hilariously oversized or undersized novelty dice that sometimes you see. Unfortunately, these ones are probably going to have to stay in Silver Borderland for now. The MTR specifically says the dice you roll cannot cause a disturbance in the game, and of course, that's probably what they were talking about. The next thing that is a little bit more fun is that if you don't have exactly the right dice available, you can substitute. For example, if you needed to roll a d6 and all you had was a d20, you could do that by rolling the d20 and then rounding up to the nearest integer after dividing by 3. Re-roll on a 19 or 20. Also, if you've never played Dungeons & Dragons before, you may never have heard the terms d6 or d20. It just means a dice with that many sides. Yeah, I do know that the singular is die and not dice. Please continue commenting it in the comments though, it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is the use of spin downs. Substitutions are allowed, but using the spin downs is not. So that we're all on the same page, this here is a spin down. You can see that the 20, represented by the time spiral logo, is clustered together with all of the other really high numbers, and they make a pattern that you can spin down, quite literally, from your life total of 20 all the way down to 1. Of course, you're not supposed to use these things for keeping track of your life total anymore, so it's a pretty sad day if you're a spin down. It's not really clear what they're good for nowadays. Now, the problem is that people are concerned that this property might make it possible for someone to manipulate the roll and give themselves a better chance of getting something higher. As you can see, with a traditional d20, the numbers have a lot more even spread between high and low. This purportedly makes it a little bit harder to manipulate the rolls, and therefore makes it more safe, in the sense of less likely that you're going to get cheated. Now, I can be on board with that, but the CR specifically says that digital substitutes for a die roll are legal, and that makes absolutely no sense at all if we're going to be concerned about spin downs being potential sources of abuse. If you're not knowledgeable about computer programming, here's a public service announcement. It would be extremely easy to write an app that would give you an advantage in die rolling. And if you did even a somewhat decent job of it, this would be almost impossible to detect. Therefore, if we're going to be concerned about spin downs, I think everybody should really be taking this a lot more seriously. The head judge does have the authority to restrict what types of methods people use to roll dice. And I think this is one of those situations where that power should definitely be considered. The aleatory nature of die rolls has also got some practical considerations in game too. For example, in the past, it's always been legal for people to pay the costs to cast a spell or activate an ability in any order. Now, there are some costs that include rolling a die. And what that means is it's not possible for you to undo that result or redo that result in a way that's really fair. And because of that, it's not legal for you to pay those costs in any order. You always have to pay any cost involving a random element last now. So yeah, this means you can't fish for a good roll on Clay Golem. You can only activate it if you're actually going to pay the mana. Another kind of interesting situation involving rerolls would be, let's say Amy rolls 2 dice for some effect that asks her to roll 1, only realizing after the fact that her pixie guy died last turn. What would you do? In this case, there's a clear answer in the Magic Tournament rules. Amy would roll only 1 dice, and the 2 dice results that she got in the previous rolls would be cancelled. Also, there are some other common types of situations where you would have to re-roll. These include if the die leaves the play surface, or if it mixes up with some other identical dice so you can't tell what the result would be, or if it ends up in a position where it's not laying flat. For example, if it's leaning against someone's library or hanging off of a playmat. In all those cases, the MTR says that you should re-roll and ignore what you got previously. The final thing that I want to talk about is that before you roll, you have to say why you're rolling. And this is something that might not make a lot of sense at first until you understand that it's not possible to undo a die roll. So if someone wanted to cast an instant in response to the spell or ability that you're doing that's going to cause you to roll a die, well, they don't have an opportunity to do that if you speed past the point where they're able to respond. And rolling that die may very well change your or your opponent's intentions about what a correct game action would be, about whether you would or would not want to have any response to that die rolling. So it's really important for players to always say what you're doing and why you're going to do it anytime they're about to roll a die. It would be extremely difficult to back up through something like that and would lead to a lot of game inconsistencies. I'm certainly not looking forward to the judge calls that I can already feel happening as a result of this sort of issue. Another thing I'm not looking forward to are the cases where one player staunchly proclaims that his hand was at least 6 inches above the table when he released the die, while his opponent adamantly insists that it couldn't have been more than a few millimeters. I don't really have a great solution for this, and I'm sure that it's going to come up. The best advice that I can offer is to investigate and do your best. You could always try asking the people in neighboring matches too, but it's not really likely that someone would see or remember a detail like that in a match that they weren't a part of. And that's all I have for you today. Is there any other issues related to die rolling that you wish I would have talked about? Let me know in the comments. Join me again tomorrow for another Daily Ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.